I guess I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Yeah, all right. So today is December 11th, 2020, and Gabe Peterson and I will be interviewing Elizabeth Petersen, who is my grandmother, not to be mistaken for Gabe's, about her life story in Milwaukee. So, first question, Grandma, where and when were you born?
I was born March 18th, 1939 in Milwaukee. And um, we lived in an apartment in Milwaukee around, I would say, 26th and Clark, which was kind of in the middle of the city at the time. And we lived in just a small apartment, but it was before the war and people didn't, we didn't have a home. We lived with grandma and grandpa.
Grandma, was that your mom's side of the family or your dad's side of
That
the
was my
family?
dad's mother, and we
Dad's.
lived with his two brothers and a sister.
And those were your cousins, right?
No, that was my uncle, my aunt and uncle.
Your aunts and uncle,
Those
okay.
were, and my uncles were both drafted and went into the war.
Okay.
And my one uncle went into the Marines, and the other went into the Air Force. And so
Gotcha.
one was stationed in Japan and fought many battles in Japan. And my other uncle was stationed in Hawaii at Nimitz Air Force Base. And he was there when they bombed Pearl Harbor. Actually,
Okay.
he tells the story, he was shaving when they bombed Pearl Harbor. So that's what happened then.
Was he on like any particular ship? Like, was he on a ship that was getting bombed, or was he like on the
No,
mainland?
he was stationed at the base. He was in the Air Force, and
Okay.
I don't know exactly what he did, but he just said that he was shaving when he was bombed.
Gotcha. All right. Good to know.
So you were quite young during World War II. Is there anything you remember about the life in Milwaukee during the war?
Well, I wasn't. I was quite small. I think I would. It was started in what war
40, 39. So you were born the year World War II started for
started.
Europe.
So I was quite young.
Yeah.
But the thing I do remember is when I was quite young. And when the war started, we had civil defenses that came out, and those were people that guarded the streets or walked the streets to see and made everything clearer. And when they did that, they blew sirens, and everybody had to turn off the lights in the house. And I remember that my brother and I had to crouch on the couch. How does that sound? Crouch on the couch. Anyway, we sat there until the air raid was over, and then we could get off the couch. And the other thing I remember is that there was a news commentator, and his name was Gabriel Heater. And I remember my grandmother always saying, we have to listen to Gabriel Heater, and the grown-ups would all gather around the little radio that we had, and no one could talk, and they'd listen to him give the report of the war for the day. So, and the other thing is my grandmother was very proud that she had two sons that were in the war. And when the fellows went in, they gave the parents flags that hung in the windows to let them know that how many people were how many were serving in the war.
So you said that was your grandma, correct? Who had your two uncles.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said that was your dad's side again, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That was grandpa's.
And then also on those those interviews over the radio or those like informants, was that like an everyday thing, or was that?
It was every night around. They would come in and he would give a synopsis of what was going on in the war on that day, and they would tell us if something was bombed, I believe, or I don't recall much of that because I didn't really remember what they said.
And you said you had a brother. Was that your younger or older brother?
I have a younger brother.
Okay, that was your younger brother. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what was his name?
My brother is Tom, and my sister is Linda. And my brother was 2 years younger than I, and my sister 5 years younger.
Okay, wow. So so you said you were very young and you don't very openly remember where you lived in Milwaukee, but you had a good idea. But where do you first like remember living in Milwaukee, like very vividly?
Oh, well, for those younger years, we lived with my dad's mother and dad. Then we moved and lived with my mother's mom and dad, which was on 33rd and Park Hill. Right now, that's in the middle of the freeway. It was near the 35th Street Viaduct.
Okay, yeah,
I think you go that get off on
yeah,
that
that's
exit.
yeah,
That
that's really
35th
close to
Street
Marquette
exit.
High.
Well, that was the area that I lived when I was about 6 years old.
Okay, that's good. Um,
So, where did you attend school? Where did you first attend school in Milwaukee?
I first attended school was at Story Hill, and that was near the Miller Brewing Company. They were building the Miller Brewery, and Merrill Park, where you boys are familiar with Merrill Park.
yeah,
Yep.
Okay. I used to walk through their park when I was young and to school. We'd walk through Merrill Park and we'd go on to school, and that's where they were building the brewery. And we used to, and I think I was like first grade, I believe, and we used to go, and the teacher would let us line up certain time of the day to watch them build the brewery, because we could not just get up and do it arbitrarily. I remember we had certain times we could go and look to see what they were doing.
okay. And so that place where Miller Park was being built, not Miller Park, Miller Brewing, it's known as the Valley now. Did that have any other name back then where you were growing up?
I believe the name was underneath the viaduct that was called Pigsville, and the man's name was spelled Piggs, and he started, it was like the first little subdivision, and everyone, I guess they even said that they raised pigs in the area, but
Okay.
I don't really, that was just the story. But the reason it changed is a lot of people didn't really like the name Pigsville. It didn't have the
Yeah,
best.
kind of a bad ring to
So
it.
years later, then they changed it to the Valley. But a lot of people, the older people, I just remember it as Pigsville and not the Valley.
Gotcha. All right. So you mentioned walking through Merrill Park as you tend to walk through Merrill Park as you get to school every day. Was there
Yeah.
anything like interesting about Merrill Park that it doesn't do regularly today?
Well, Merrill Park was really where all the kids would go. In the wintertime, they made they put up an ice house, and they had an ice skating rink, and then they had the park, and they had games, and they had chess tournaments for anybody who wanted it, and they played tennis. I believe it was still where the tennis courts are now for Marquette High.
Yeah, and our tennis team actually still uses those tennis courts. Like our
Yep.
freshman and JV team still use those. Yeah, so that's pretty neat. So that's pretty cool.
Do you have something to say, Gabe? Are you?
Well, you were kind of talking about like
School?
Pickville
Yeah,
and
I know.
stuff, but like when you were first like in school, did you have like a big group you kind of were with and you hung out with like a lot when you were younger?
Well, we walked to school every day and back, and so there was always a group of us that lived kind of close together. So because we were so young, we would all walk together and we'd play in the playground, and so it was kind of just kind of normal for us. But living with my grandma and my mother's mother and dad, my grandfather worked for the railroad, and he worked on it called the roundhouse, where they fixed the locomotives, and there weren't very many men that could do that, and so he had a pretty important job. And we lived in walking distance for him to go to work because most people didn't have cars and they usually lived where they worked.
Okay. All right.
So you just said like your father, right, was highly regarded as like a very good mechanic on cars.
And that was my grandfather.
Grandfather.
Mhm.
All right. So in your time, you said cars weren't very popular yet, but so
Well, cars were very popular,
oh,
Andrew.
so they were
We just didn't have one. We didn't have one right away. And then my dad did get a car, an old car, and but families usually just had one car.
okay.
And then we used the bus, and we had buses. And
So before you got a car, what were some ways of transportation for you to get around the city efficiently?
well, we had a streetcar that ran down Wisconsin Avenue,
Okay.
and it was a big yellow streetcar, and you could ride one end. I think it started around about 35th and Wells, and it went down part way, and then it went on to Wisconsin Avenue all the way down to the lakefront.
Okay.
And it was really, I remember we always enjoyed running. As kids used to go on and we'd see the first one that could get on because there was one car, and one on each side was where the conductor or the engineer would drive it on going up the avenue or down the avenue. And the one, if we were going down the avenue, there was no one sitting on the one that the engine part, so we could sit up on that seat where the engineer could sit and ride.
Oh, so there were like two driver seats?
Yes, one on each
Oh,
side.
okay. And you guys would sit on the one that the engineer was not on.
And then the engineer would come through, or the conductor, and he would move all the seats either one way going up and one way back. So it was one car going
Gotcha.
north. And then the other, we had electric buses for a long time, and where you have all of the wires above the streets, and every once in a while the wire would come off, so the bus driver would have to get out, put his gloves on, go in the back of the back, put up the word.
Okay.
So were these transportation methods very popular, and did like a lot of people use them back then?
Oh, I'm sure there were people. We took the bus. Everybody went on the bus if you were going somewhere or walking.
Was there a bus and one of these?
It was
These streetcars, or are you referring to the same thing?
There was a streetcar.
And a bus?
Yeah.
And there was a
Yes.
bus?
Yes.
Okay. And speaking of Wisconsin Avenue, how you said the streetcar traveled from the lakefront towards your house. What do you remember about Wisconsin Avenue, or like living near Wisconsin Avenue? Because that was like a hot shot street back in the day.
Well, we lived off of 33rd in Park Hill, which was it's what, 5 or 6 blocks from Wisconsin Avenue. And there was shopping. And is that what you asked me?
Yeah, just like what you remember about Wisconsin Avenue. Are there any?
Well, we didn't spend much time there. We would just go to school, and then we had to go home. We weren't on the street. We were always at home.
But it also says here like there was like a Walgreens or something that had like
Oh, now if you want now.
Like in dining, like there was like dining inside these drugstores and stuff like that. What do you remember about those?
Yeah. Well, if we would go downtown, I remember going with my grandmother. We would go up to the bus stop, and then we would get on the bus and go down Wisconsin Avenue to about, I would say, 6th Street. And then we would get off, and there was Boston Store was a big department store, and Gimbel's was on the other end. And in between, they had, it was our hub of shopping. And there were beautiful theaters downtown and restaurants. And there was Walgreens had a lunch counter, which
Okay.
was marble. I remember it being marble. And we could have, you know, you'd have an ice cream or something to eat. And that's what we did. And then there was, there were a lot of shows. There was a store called Woolworths, which was
Okay.
really, which was like a five and dime. And we would go in there, and my grandmother would love to go there because she could go and shop for all the supplies that she needed for her knitting or whatever she did. And
Okay.
she always let us buy one little thing, and then we'd always stop and have something at the counter. They had a big lunch counter there too.
Gotcha. So were these like diners like popular in the drugstores and stuff like that? Were they common?
Yeah, most of it, yes, because there were restaurants, but they didn't have, we always stopped at just the counters to eat because that was the most fun.
Yeah, I get it. So it also says here that inside the Boston store, like during Christmas, they had this really cool train. Do you remember anything like in particular about the Boston store in general?
Oh, they did the Wisconsin Avenue at Christmas time was decorated, really a lot of decorations, and the two department stores on each end. One would have like, let's see, what I was going to tell you. They would have, they had this train in the Boston store that ran on the ceiling. And that was always something to look forward to when they decorated the whole second floor was all decorated for Christmas. And they would have Billy the Brownie, and they would have Meat Tech. I remember the name. I think that was one of his sidekicks, Santa's helper. And
Okay.
and they'd always have Santa. And
Gotcha.
then on the other side, they'd had lots of luncheons. Ladies, they had a lot of things for shopping. They would have style shows and luncheons and all kinds of activities in the downtown area. And that was, most people went down there to do really a lot of nice things at Christmas time or any time. It was always
Gotcha. Nice.
mine here. So after we moved from being small, my mother and dad, my dad opened up a bakery, and when I was quite small, and we didn't have that very long, but they called it Betty Ann's Pastry because most people that owned small businesses always used first names. And they didn't, and so we didn't have that bakery very long. And then my dad opened one in 1950. And instead of calling it Betty Ann's Pastry, they used to use the surnames.
What's a surname?
So it was called Barger's, and
Oh.
and then there other bakeries were like Graby's and Moyer's, and those were when those big bakeries were coming into to business.
So the bakery, Betty Ann's Pastry, that was named after you?
Yes.
Was it, that was common to name it after their firstborn, right? You said?
No, it was just one of their children, and I just so happened to be.
So they just so happened to name it after you because they thought it had a nice ring to it. And then what year did you say it changed to Barger's Bakery?
My dad opened the bakery in 1950. And that's when, but I think I'm a little bit out of, sequence here. You think so?
Oh, no, you're completely fine.
Oh, okay.
And
so that's where I grew up. That's where I spent most of my time. I mean, growing up.
Working in the bakery?
We moved a few times during my real young years, but we stayed in the bakery till it closed.
What
50
year did
years
it
later.
close?
Huh.
What year did it close?
It was 50 years later. So
So 2000?
we had it, 2000, was it about 2000?
50 years later would be, yeah, it opened up in 1950, you said, and then it closed around 2000.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Nice.
And in my high school years, I went to the Divine Savior, and that was the new girls' school that opened up on Capitol Drive. The other school was Holy Angels, and that had been in existence for a long time. In the 20s, I think it opened up. And then
That was Divine Savior, and then it changed to Holy Angels.
No, then they merged. Divine Savior and Holy Angels merged, I believe, in the 60s. And when I went there when it was just Divine Savior.
Okay. And then when did it change to Holy Angels?
I think in 1960, in the 60s somewhere.
In the 60s?
Mm-hmm. And but as I remember, when it was DS, we had no gymnasium at the time. So our group was called the $40,000 Kids, and we raised money. We raised money to build the gym, and we sold, well, they said bricks, but you'd sell a brick for whatever, $10 or whatever you could, whatever your donation was.
Who did you sell the bricks to?
Anybody who wanted to buy one.
Anybody?
No, I'm sure your grandmothers and mothers and I don't.
Yeah.
Your relatives.
Yeah, anybody.
Yeah.
So the gym they recently built a few years back, the gym they took down was the one you guys raised money for.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, so that thing's got some. So my mom would have played in that, right?
Your mom played in the gym, yes, and so did your cousin.
Grace, yeah, with Enrique and stuff like that. Yeah. That was cool. So, actually, speaking of school, before DS, where did you attend like grade school before you attended high school?
Okay, well, the first one I went to was Story School.
So yeah, Story
School.
School.
I went to was a school. My parents bought a home on 18th and Morgan, and that was our first house that we owned. And I went to a school called Morgandale, but we didn't go there very long. We transferred over to a Catholic school, which was called St. Alexander's.
Yeah, okay.
And I went there until my folks bought the bakery. We lived in that house about 2 years. But while we lived there, and before Grandpa was looking for a bakery, he also was a welder. So he made what they called ornamental fences, ornamental railings for houses.
Okay.
A lot of houses in that area. It was a brand new area, and they had just a stoop and a step. So he thought it should look better. So he made the ornamental railings for those, and he welded those together. And there's still some of them still standing.
What company did he work for, you said? Sorry.
No, that was his own business.
Oh, he ran his own business. Okay. Where was his business located?
Well, his business was in our basement.
Oh.
He did all of that in the basement. And so, let me see. And
And so how long did he do that for?
My dad, he was a welder by trade, and he worked for A.O. Smith and Ellis Chalmers when he was younger, and he did arc welding, and he helped build the Hoover Dam. He did a lot of the work on the inside of that. When they did welding, it was called arc welding, and they'd get in those big cylinders, and then they would have to, that's where they welded inside of those. And then I think I think A.L. Smith or that's when those big manufacturing were here.
Yeah, A.O.
Arnie
Smith.
Sager and
Yeah, those guys. We actually just learned about them in class in like World War II on how they made A.O. Smith made like 5 million bomb shells for World War II, and
yeah, they did.
Stormers was the leading employer in Milwaukee. So yeah, we just got done learning about that stuff. So that's
Well, we were, the Milwaukee was called the machine shop of the.
of the world.
Mhm.
Yeah, we just learned about. Yeah, that's really cool. That's a cool comparison.
So
That's interesting.
let me see what else is here. Oh, and then we were a silly thing, no, but we were the first ones, or one of the first to open. My dad was delivery food. He opened up a business called Chicken Delight. And Chicken Delight was a franchise that you made chicken dinners and people would call in and you would deliver like we're doing today.
Yeah.
And we were one of the first ones. And then after that, then it was, there was pizza, but we did one of the first chicken deliveries. And we had a store in Waukesha, but that was one thing that Grandpa
Did you
was
work
very
there?
entrepreneur. He liked to start a lot of things, and he was always thinking about doing something. So he was
How long did
very
you have that?
innovative at his age.
How long did you have that Chicken Delight business for?
About 3 years.
3 years?
But he mostly liked his bakery. We
preferred the bakery?
like he had someone taking over, and he was always involved in the bakery more so than he was in the other one.
So did he run more than one business at a time? So did he have the bakery and the Chicken Delight?
Yeah, he had both of them, but he had someone running he had the bakery and he had someone else doing the other. So it was just a business that he owned.
And was that my great grandpa Barger?
Yeah.
That was my great grandpa Barger. Okay.
Sure, great grandpa. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Let's see, what else is there?
So back to the high school topic. When you would hang out with your group of friends, whether it be from DS or Marquette, what did you guys just like to do in your free time, just as teenage kids?
Oh, let's see. Well, there were some places that you could go dancing.
Oh, just like open dances, just like dance floors that were. You guys would do that, just go out and dance.
Well, they had places where you could go dancing, and then they had drive-in where you could go, and the kids kind of congregated around these drive-ins. You go up and have a soda and ice cream, and they would, or a hamburger stand, and one was called Leon's, and then what's the big one?
Gillies?
The one? Cops today.
Oh,
Cops, and the one on Wisconsin Avenue that the
Gillies?
Marquette kids go.
Gillies?
Gillies.
Yeah.
All of those, and so they
For
would
sure.
have there was a lot of hanging out at those places. But we had school dances, and there were a lot of school activities. But I remember there was not as many things to do.
Yeah. Well, you guys made the best of it, so that's good. All right. So after you graduated high school, what do you remember going on from there? Did you attend college? Did you work in one of your grandpa's?
Well, at that time, I just stayed. I worked for my parents because we were very busy at that time. We were really in full operation. And when I got out of school, I worked for my parents and did cake decorating and got involved in the bakery for a long time.
So you worked for, oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. And then at one time I went and I decided that I wanted to do something else. So I left the bakery for, I don't know, about a year. And I just worked in an office downtown and met some friends.
Are you still friends with them today? Those people you met?
Yes, I still visit with some of them. Actually, I have two friends.
And what was that company called that you worked at? That little office? What company was that for?
I worked for an insurance company, just a small one.
Oh,
It's called,
okay.
what was it called? Gottschalk. It was called Gottschalk, Robertson and Ryan.
Gottschalk
That was
Robertson.
right on, that was on Plankington in Plankington in Wisconsin Avenue. And I didn't work there very long, but
Okay.
it was fun to try something new. I was the switchboard operator.
So yeah, so that's a big change from running a bakery and chicken
But
chicken
the
restaurant.
but the switchboard operator, you'd have 10 men working and the whole thing would light up and you would have to answer all the phones at one time, you know, and you'd say, good morning, boop, good morning. So, and then you'd have to go back and see what everybody wanted to talk to. So
Yeah, gotcha.
So you only worked there for about a year, and then like after you worked there, did you return to baking?
yeah, I did return to the bakery and I worked there till till I got married and then I left there. But I continued working after. I still did cake decorating for 40 years, I think it was.
Oh gosh,
It's been
wow.
a long time.
Wow. It's a long time. So where did you meet Grandpa or Mr. Peterson, sorry.
You met,
Where
I
did
met,
yeah, where did you meet
oh,
my grandpa?
well, everybody, almost all, if you did anything, if you went anywhere to a movie or whatever, most of it, we always went downtown. So I met Mr. Peterson at on Wisconsin Avenue. We were walking to the car, and we stopped and talked at a bus stop for quite a long time. And so I said, well, where's your car? Don't you have to take the bus? And his friend had dropped him off and on the corner, and he stood at the bus stop. As we walked by, we started talking, and that's how I met him.
Okay. And do you remember anything about Grandpa, like how he grew up? Just like quick.
Wait, yeah, your grandfather, or Mr. Peterson, or
Yeah, yeah, Mr.
uh, he grew up on 12th and the Avenue. His apartment building. He lived in the Carolina,
Okay.
and he grew up on Wisconsin Avenue. He went to Jesu grade school. He went to Marquette High School, and he went to Marquette University.
Oh, so he went to Marquette High too?
Mm-hmm.
What year did he graduate from there?
57.
Wow, that's a while.
And I have an aerial picture if you want. Can you see
Oh, that'd
that?
be great. Yeah.
Where do I show that? Here?
You can go a little bit higher. A little bit higher. That's Jesu.
And no, that's Jesu, and this is an aerial view, and the apartment building right here is, I think,
Oh,
yeah,
you have
that's
to bring it up a little bit higher.
the apartment. This apartment building is the apartment building that your grandfather grew up in. This
Grandpa
is,
Peterson?
mhm.
Oh, so he grew up really, really close.
And now this is all Marquette University. I think this is Johnson Hall, and Jesu, but all the rest is down. It used to be, and I think there's one of the buildings is one of the dorms down there.
Okay.
So and there was a filling station where all those cars were. That we used to be a filling station and a drugstore, and now it's all the campus.
Okay. And it says here, there's a story about your friend Mabel about Jesu.
Oh,
You want
there's
to
a
tell us about that?
great story about Mabel. I'll show you. This lady here, can you see it?
Yep.
Her name is
Yep.
Mabel McClancy,
Okay.
and she was a very good friend of your grandmother and grandpa. Your grandpa came over from Denmark, and they worked in the restaurant business. But anyway, that's how they met Mabel. Well, Mabel was a funny kind of lady. She loved to feed the birds, so she would always take 5 o'clock in the morning. She would get up and she'd fill her bag up with breadcrumbs and go out to feed the pigeons. And she did this every day. And the pigeons got so fat they could hardly fly. That was the story. And so, but what had happened was that she was feeding them so often, and they were messing up the steeples on Jesu. They were pooping on the steeples. So she was told, you can't feed them because it's too much work. They got to clean that all up. Well, she stopped. She wasn't happy, but she stopped. But the birds didn't go away. And so they had to do a lot of work on fixing up the or having it repaired. And one story goes, the ladies were all coming out of church. Your grandma went to church every day with maybe there was a group of ladies, and Father came out to talk with them one morning in front of church, and one of the pigeons pooped on his cassock, and he looked at it, he said, and for the rich they sing, which means they would sing for, but if you were just a commoner, they'd poop on you. And that was what just a
Gotcha.
joke that he
That's
would say. And this is the building this is the building your grandpa Petersen grew
Oh,
up.
that's just a different angle of it. And then that's Jesu in the back.
Yeah, and that one was torn down. And this is an article that I have about, and then what was, and now this is an old picture of Jesu Jesu grade school. There's not very many, that's been down a long time. Can you see that?
Yeah. Do you remember what year that got taken down?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Or do you think it might still be part of?
It was taken in 1945.
Oh, so that's the year the war ended.
Yeah. So this was taken down after your dad. I would say 50. I don't know. I suppose in the 60s or so it was taken down.
Okay.
When they started redoing the campus at Marquette, that was taken down.
Oh, so that's not part of the campus? It's not like a dorm or anything for MU?
What is that?
It's not a dorm for anything like MU? It's not, you're sure it got taken down?
Well, in that aerial view that I showed you,
Mm-hmm.
all of those areas was taken down, but that was not a dorm then.
Okay.
And I have another picture if you want to see, and
Oh yeah, for sure.
this was one of where your great grandfather went to church at. It's called Our Savior Lutheran Church. It's right up on Wisconsin Avenue. I think you can see it if you ride by.
Yep.
And so this was the church that he belonged to.
Barger, my great grandpa.
Well, your grandpa Petersen.
Okay.
Grandpa was Lutheran and grandma was Catholic.
Okay.
And what else was there about? And your dad or your grandfather, he grew up in that area, and he went to all three Marquette schools.
Wow. So that's really cool that he's an alum. That's actually really cool. Is there anything else you remember about Mr. Petersen as like a young boy growing up?
Well, I don't know. I don't really. I wouldn't know too much about.
Not too much about Grandpa growing up.
There are.
I mean, it's all right. That's all right if you don't really remember that much. But
the only thing I know is where your great grandfather, Grandpa Petersen, came from Denmark, Bordenborg, Denmark.
Yeah, you mentioned that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and then I know the other thing. Your grandfather, your grandpa's mom and dad owned a Petersen's coffee shop, which was on where Marquette's Al McGuire.
Where's Al McGuire?
what is he at? Is that the center, Al McGuire Center, where the women play basketball at Marquette?
Oh yeah.
University?
I know what you're talking about.
Well,
The MU girls.
that's where your grandma and grandpa had a restaurant,
How
right
long?
on that corner.
How long did that go for?
They had their restaurant for 14 years, and your grandfather was the chef at, it was called the Schrader Hotel, which was a great.
Yeah. Yep.
He was a chef, your grandpa,
At the Schrader Hotel.
at the Schrader Hotel.
That's really, really cool.
And that, I think it was the Schrader, it was the Pfister Hotel was the big hotel.
Yeah, that's the big one that's still up today.
And
Yep.
now I believe that, I think the Schrader is now called, it was the Mark Plaza or the Hilton. It's right near the Midwest Center on Wisconsin Avenue, about 3rd Street.
Yep. And that's where he was a chef?
At the Schrader Hotel.
Schrader. Okay.
Do you know how
And-
long he was the chef there?
Oh gosh, let me see. He was there. I would say he was about 10 years.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's good. He must have been pretty good. 10 years. Wow. So back to Mr. Petersen. Do you remember when you got married and where?
Yeah, we were married at St. Catherine's Church on 51st and Center,
Okay.
and it was just a newly remodeled church, and it was called St. Catherine's, and
St.
that was
Catherine's? Do you remember
that was 5 blocks from our bakery, so we kind of stayed in the same area.
Do you remember what year that was?
When we were married,
Yep.
yeah, I think I remember. 1964.
Wow. Wow. And after that, you had 3 lovely aunts and uncles of mine.
I guess
Yeah.
I had 3 children, right? And one is your mother.
Yep. Do you remember anything?
Youngest.
Do you remember anything growing up with them, what they did in Milwaukee?
Well, they all went to what's cool. Well, they all went to Catholic school.
Raised a Catholic. And you said Grandpa was a Lutheran, right? Or did he convert to Catholicism?
No, he did not.
He was a
But
Lutheran
Your
still?
dad, but your grandfather went to all the Catholic. His mother.
And
was Catholic.
he was okay with the kids going.
Yes, I'm sure. I don't know too much about that story, about your grandfather and his religion.
But okay. And so my mom and Aunt Kristen also went to Divine Savior, correct?
Yeah, but they
And
first
then-
started off at a little Catholic school called Immaculate Heart of Mary on 116th
Yep.
and Greenfield.
I remember going to church there with you when I was really little.
Yeah, and let's see. And then your mom and Kristen went to DSHA, and your uncle went to Marquette.
So, Fred, yeah, that's right. Uncle Fred went to Marquette. That was really, really cool.
Kristen and Uncle Fred graduated both from Marquette University, and your mom from St. Norbert's.
So,
But
that-
your mom was the big sport person,
he was.
family. Your mom played tennis, baseball, basketball at DS.
Wow.
She played all varsity sports. And then she went on at St. Norbert's. She was women's coach at St. Norbert's, and she had a national championship from St. Norbert's.
Yeah.
And Kristen and Uncle Fred. Kristen went to Marquette and got her degree. And I think she had a business degree, and your uncle has a engineering degree.
Wow. So we kind of jumped the gun a little bit there, but
Yeah, we did.
after you got married, did you spend a lot of time in the city?
We lived in Madison for a little while, but we always lived in the city. We, I, we bought our first house on Forest Drive here in New Berlin, and
Oh yeah, you're still
I've
there.
lived here forever.
Yep.
So it's been the same place.
It says here that Mr. Petersen really enjoyed the city. Was there anything in particular that you guys enjoyed doing together?
Oh, Grandpa was we were big baseball fans. We always went to to Miller Park, not Miller Park, County Stadium or baseball game. And we went to a lot of Marquette, always supported Marquette. And your grandfather was a big bowler,
Bowler, yeah.
liked to bowl. And he was on a lot of leagues, and we just always stayed in the Milwaukee area.
Was it like you said you were big baseball fans? So Miller Park, we just learned about, started construction or finished construction in 2001. Do you remember anything in particular about County Stadium?
County Stadium was an open air stadium, so it was always.
So it's not like Miller Park.
If it was rainy, you got rained on. If it was cold, it was cold. And we always tried to have season tickets. So we would be the first ones in the spring to go, even if we had to wear our boots and jackets or whatever. And when you went to the ball game, you could have the food they served at the ball game was popcorn, peanuts, hot dogs, soda, and a beer. That's all you could get.
Oh, so they kept it really limited.
It's not like today where you can get so many different varieties of food and the only thing that's really seems funny to me is that as we went to the new Miller Park, remember they would come and take your order, and then they would bring the food to you. Well, that never happened. We always laughed about that. You can have all this fancy food, but I'll tell you, going to the baseball game and having the hot dog, that was the most fun.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or it tasted the best, I guess.
And you wrote here that there at County Stadium, I don't think you mentioned this, there was something called Mug Night at County Stadium?
Your grandfather worked for a company, he sold Maxwell House Coffee, which was General Foods. And for one of their promotions, your grandfather's, and they collaborated with the brewer to have what they called Mug Night. And on Mug Night, they would, there were mugs with the different brewers' names on it, and there would be a big party, and there would be a lot of people from the grocery industry that he would invite from the big like it would have been Kohl's or Kroger or Pick and Save or whatever, and there would be a lot of people from those companies that were invited. Wow. And they gave mugs to all the promotion would be they'd give the people that were coming in, for each ticket you got a mug. So there were a lot of baseball mugs.
Yeah, so I think we have some of those at our house. Are they like?
Yeah, there's some going around. Mm-hmm.
Those are the little blue ones we have all in our houses.
The blue ones, and then there's ones with the baseball players' pictures on and their signatures. Did you ever see those, Gabe?
No,
a mug? Never saw a coffee mug?
Well, I've seen a coffee mug, but not those.
I'll have to give one to Andrew for you.
And do you know how long you held season tickets for games?
Well, we didn't hold every year, but I would say we would, when they first opened, we had season tickets because Grandpa worked, or my husband worked for the company, and we did a lot with the Brewers. So that's how we got season tickets.
Gotcha. Oh, and so the Green Bay Packers played in County Stadium from 1953 to 1994. Did those season tickets particularly only count for baseball, or did those count over
just baseball?
It was just baseball? Did you guys do anything for the Green Bay Packers or no?
We really didn't. That was more in the Green Bay area. We didn't. They only played a few games down here. So, but the people up in Green Bay mostly had the season tickets for down here, I believe.
Oh, okay, okay.
But the only thing I remember is your grandfather went to the Ice Bowl.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he went up, they drove up to the Ice Bowl, he and three of his other friends. And what had happened was he never went back up to a Green Bay game. He said, I'd rather watch it on TV because they were so cold and it was the worst thing. And then they had to drive all the way back to Milwaukee. And so that wasn't one of the most exciting things he did, but he remembered it.
And that was against the Cowboys, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you remember or heard, I don't know.
Gotcha. And also, it says something about the circus parade involved in it, bringing some circus parade to Milwaukee. Do you want to touch up on that a little bit?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
It said something here about the circus parade.
Oh, that was another thing that your grandfather was involved in. They had the Clydesdale horses that came, and it was like I think like 27 horses that came down. I think they had that circus like twice, and then there was something. I don't think anybody was killed, but I think one of the Clydesdales got maybe spooked, and but they ran that circus for a few years. And they brought everything down from Baraboo on big trains, and it would set up at the Veterans Park on the lakefront.
Okay.
And then there's a book that we have from the circus parade. But that was a company that your grandpa's company sponsored part of it. It wasn't all of his company, but he was one of the sponsors
for the circus parade.
For the circus parade.
And you said he worked for Max. Oh. And you said he worked for. Yo, you're all right. Don't worry about it. And you said he worked for Maxwell House. Grandpa did.
House Coffee. Mm-hmm.
Were they like a big sponsor in the Milwaukee area?
Yes.
They were pretty big. Gotcha. And there's two more things on here. Can you tell us something about the Hyatt revolving restaurant?
Oh yeah, we had at the one restaurant or the big hotel. That was a big thing that they had the revolving. They had the revolving restaurant on top, and that was a fun place to go. And that was.
And where did you say that was?
That was down. That was. Do you know where Wisconsin Wisconsin plays their basketball? Is that at the Panther? The Panthers.
Oh, you mean UW Milwaukee?
Yeah.
Milwaukee.
Yeah,
Yes.
UWM Arena.
Yeah, UWM. Mm-hmm. It was across the street from there, but they.
Okay. So, and how often did you guys go there?
Oh, at least once a year we would go, and Grandpa always really, or Mr. Petersen like that. He's like going there.
Gotcha. And the final thing, the NCAA tournament when Marquette won under Al McGuire. Do you want to tell us about that?
Oh, that was an exciting time for your dad. He got the big plaque for that, and there was a lot of celebration. That was a big deal here. And Al McGuire was really a very famous, or everybody loved Al McGuire. And then he, I don't know how many years he coached, but he was there for quite a long time.
Gotcha.
And yeah. So we always liked a lot of sports here in
Big sports family.
Yeah, going, attending, and yeah, we all liked a lot of sports.
Wow. Well, that's really, really cool. So Gabe, you got any final questions or?
So do you remember like the games he attended that were in the NCAA tournament that he went to at all?
I remember that we would go during the series we would go to most of them, and I went to a couple, but Grandpa went he had season tickets for Marquette for let's see, I think he had them for about 30 years. We had market tickets. So they went to lots and lots of games in NCAA games. So,
Yeah, and also going back, you attended a lot of baseball, but did you attend a lot of Bucks games back then at all?
yeah, we did. We went to quite a few Bucks games at Bradley Center. And I haven't been to any at the new center, but the Bradley Center was really a fun place to go to. Now that I think they have already torn that down. Now it's a new
Yeah.
nicer.
Yeah,
That-
Pfizer's
there now.
Yeah, it's just becoming a part of the Pfizer Forum area.
Yeah, it's really changed. It changed since when we were young.
Yeah.
There's a lot of changes down there.
Yeah, so growing up, like just touching on back up on the Bucks a little bit, who did you watch a lot? Like Kareem and stuff like that? Is that who you guys watched?
Yeah, Kareem.
Allen.
Yeah, that was the big sports guy. It was Kareem.
Yeah. Did Grandpa and you have like, were you guys big fans of him or just?
And I was more for baseball. I liked Robin Yount
Oh yeah,
when
for
we
sure.
were there when he did his 3,000 hit, and we have a picture of that, and we
Isn't
have
there?
a picture with a lot of the Brewers. Robin Yount,
Yeah, I've seen that
Paul
picture.
Molitor.
Yeah.
So
You have pictures of those with them?
yes. Hmm.
Wow, that's really cool.
And do you remember anything about the World Series that back then that the Brewers went to when they had Yount and Molitor?
Oh, I don't remember that. If Grandpa was here, he could tell you who played in every game and who was on first and who and who hit a home run and he could do all of those things. But I was I guess maybe I ate more hot dogs than I should have.
Gotcha. So that just about wraps things up for this. Grandma, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us and talk a little bit.
I hope I told you things that I hope it helps you out or you can learn. I hope I taught you something. I
Oh,
don't know if I did.
you did. A lot of
Thanks for
interesting.
asking me, and I enjoyed both of you boys. I'll have to meet you sometime.
Yeah, it was very nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
All right. Thank you so much, Grandma.
Okay, thanks, Andrew.